I can't decide where to start this review. On one hand, I want to go with the outside here because it kind of sucks.
But on the other hand, I want to show you the inside here because it kind of sucks.
I think we shall go for the outside. I don't have too much to say in this department. It obviously isn't the prettiest car in the world, not the worst, and it is definitely an improvement on its predecessor. But in silver and without the tinted back windows, I wouldn't exactly call it a looker. I mean, there's obviously also a rather large level of wear, tear, and, well, abuse and a little bit of theft from over the years, like these scratches here and stuff. But even without that, it's definitely no R-Class and definitely no Zafira. Fear not, though, for there is a solution to this. Go inside. If I just... Oh no, that doesn't work, does it? Okay, that's fine. How do I... The keys out. If I just... Oh, there we go. Right, yeah, I've got to go. Yeah, just go on the other side. Go inside. I don't know if I can specifically say whether it gets better or worse now we're in here, even if you can't see the outside, but it definitely isn't all good. In fact, I think I shall save the worst till last. So firstly, buttons. I have driven this car to Northern Ireland and back, and I'm still not 100% sure what everything in here does or where it is. Like, for example, the Navi button, one would assume, has something to do with navigation, but nothing at all seems to happen when I press it. And there's also like these buttons up here, which do something vague, but I don't really know. I mean, I don't seem to need them either because I've never used them, so a bit irrelevant possibly. And my least favourite are these buttons here on the wheel, which aren't like actual buttons. They're just useless because that, like, it clutters up the steering wheel a bit and they just don't do anything. They're just entirely useless. So not the biggest fan of that. And I suppose, pardon me, I suppose there are quite a few buttons, but you do kind of get used to them after a while, and they are kind of satisfying to press. So that does balance out ever so slightly. And of course, everything in here is not bad. There are some decent bits. The aircon, that works rather well. It does smell slightly, but you know, you can deal with that, and that's probably not the car's fault. Steering wheel, pretty nice. Other than that, pretty nice, big and chunky, which this might be leather, might be fake leather, don't know. Either way, it's quite comfortable and nice. Although the wheel itself does have a rather large issue that I'll also get onto later. But overall, not too bad. However, rather overshadowed. So getting into slightly worse territory now, the fuel gauge. It just doesn't work at all. A lot of my driving in this car has been done when the car thinks it has 0 miles worth of fuel in the tank. Like, it just doesn't. Like, generally, it has a vague idea of the amount of exploded liquid inside of it, but sometimes it just doesn't register when you're putting fuel in, and sometimes it just doesn't register when you're actually using fuel, and then actually the car isn't being airlifted down the length of the M5 to save fuel. So that can sometimes be difficult. But possibly worse than that, though, are the headlights. So picture the scene. It's a fine British night, so yes, it's raining, but the pubs are open, and you've decided to take your Toyota Corolla Verso for a cruise of the countryside. It's a lonely road, and for miles you see no one but a slightly squished pheasant and a yodel delivery driver who missed his turning by about 7 miles. So you're on full beam. Car doesn't like it. You're on full beam. All is well in the world, and you can even see it. But then suddenly, as you come up to a bend in the road, the dreaded happens. You see headlights on the hedge. It's another driver. So, like the good life-respecting citizen you are, you flip off the full beam and then you crash because the headlights in this car are terrible. Like, bad. Like, you'd honestly be better off painting your eyeballs with like fluorescent paint, because then you get to ride in an ambulance, which would generally be, I think, a good bit safer. But if you don't crash and you manage to get to a time of day such as early evening, when it's becoming a little bit duskier and it is time for you to turn on the headlights, then another challenge shall arise. The ladies and gentlemen at Toyota from 2004 to 2007 came up with a rather interesting design for the dashboard. Whenever it's light outside and you don't have your headlights turned on, then the dashboard lights up. A little bit pointless possibly, but not a problem. But when it becomes time for you to turn on your headlights, then the dash lights go out. Now, this isn't really a problem at actual night when it's properly dark, because they're slightly luminescent, so you can actually still see the dials. However, if it's sort of mid-light or it's just beginning to dim a little bit, then the problem arises because they're not lit up. but the little luminescent glow isn't enough to pierce through so you can actually see. So a considerable amount of squinting and hard looking at the dial are needed to check you aren't accidentally doing like 60 outside of a school, which probably isn't too safe considering you're then not very much looking at the road, which, yeah, probably could cause problems, especially if you are actually outside of a school. That could be quite bad. But of course, the very, very worst thing of all in this car is the rear. Oh, that wasn't good. Oh dear, oops, hang on. Not ideal. But of course, the very worst thing of all in this car is the gear stick. It's not round. Just terrible. Look at that. Look how awful that looks in compared to the Golfs. It's awful. Or the Zafira, exactly. It's shaped like Master Oogway's head. Like it actually is. Yeah, fully disappointing. And not even fixed by the multitude of cup holders in this car. It does have a lot of cup holders, that's quite good. But gear stick, that's docked points for the Toyota, seriously. But unfortunately, I cannot drive without it, unlike half of the stuff in here, which even whilst writing the review for this, I still couldn't work out. Although I don't entirely understand everything in here, I do thankfully have a basic grasp of the basic motor functions of this car. The motor. So, let's fire her up. It's a button to press. How modern. So it's not exactly a driving machine. I mean, literally it is, but it's not exactly the best of its kind. So objectively, the engine, it isn't too bad. It's a 1.8 litre inline 4-cylinder engine. If you particularly care about engines, it is the 1ZZ-FE engine. If you care even more, then it was designed in Buffalo in West Virginia as a collaboration with Yamaha. Also, it is the same engine that's in the Toyota Celica, the Toyota MR2, Lotus Elise, and even the Pontiac Vibe, which is the one I'd have. But the engine itself puts out 127 brake horsepower, and it also puts out 125 pound-feet of torque. Oh boy, you're off. So yeah, sorry, as I was saying, it drives the car to a top speed of 121 miles an hour and, bump bump, you're still there, a 0 to 62 time of just 10.8 seconds, which isn't, to be fair to it, ridiculously slow. I do suspect that these days it wouldn't quite make that. It's a bit old and it's not in the best condition, but that is, in theory, bye-bye, the specs of the car. But as we know, a car is not a sum of its numbers, so let me tell you a little more about it. So the very first thing I noticed when I got in this car and drove it for the first time about almost 2 weeks ago now actually, was the steering. As you may be able to see now, it tracks to the left. So this means in order to drive forward, you have to constantly drive ever so slightly to the right. Now, this is difficult because I have to sort of make a distinguishification, it's not a word, I have to distinguish between the car itself and use/misuse of the car, because I'm not sure it's entirely fair to blame that one on the car. I doubt it was birthed like that, but it hasn't, to my knowledge, been slogged up Everest or something, and to an extent, it is kind of the build quality that it perhaps has done that. Maybe we've hit a pothole or something. Following on from that, the steering itself it's not incredible. I mean, it's not terrible, but as you can see, there's a little bit of like wiggle. Like I'm kind of wiggling the wheel and car is not really responding. And as well as that, it's not always the most precise. You're not going to have the crispest of driving steering experiences in the car. So next on to acceleration. I've told you the specs already, 127 brake horsepower, and that is, as far as I've found so far, ample power. I've not ever thought, I could use a bit more power to go up this hill. Even with stuff in the back, even with people in the car, I've always thought it has plenty of power for what it needs to do. Okay, and then on to gears. So there is a known fault in Toyota Corolla Versos of the gears going, to be very scientific and specific, but we've not had that in the car. The only thing I would say is when you are cruising on a motorway going 60, 70, you can feel and hear the car straining a little bit. There is a little bit of like a sort of a whine, which suggests to me that it could perhaps benefit from having a 6th gear, mainly for those motorway journeys, which in fact is something they added on the Toyota Corolla Verso 2, which they started producing in 2007, the same year this car's from actually, but they did then add a 6th gear, so they probably cottoned onto that themselves, but all in all, not too bad. Now, speaking of motorways though, this brings up my very favourite part of the car actually, and that is the cruise control. Not something I've had on a car before that I've driven, but it has it, it works, and it's pretty easy. All you do, pop in this button, hit it down at the speed you're going, and the car will maintain that speed. Not sure I'm exactly using it on the right type of road now, because there's literally more potholes than smooth surface, but it has cruise control and it works. It makes those motorway journeys just that bit easier. So that is a very big plus point for the car. Well done, Toyota. You've done something well. Now, the fact that it is currently not raining brings me nicely onto my next point. And believe you me, the fact that it isn't raining is improving my day significantly, because wipers. Probably could hear them right there. Wipers. So the windscreen wipers of this car are very, very good if you're in extremely heavy precipitation. So in heavy rain, they're great. They're very fast, efficient, no problem. But it does seem like they were only designed for monsoon season in Africa, because I've never ever seen them go slowly effectively. So they seem to have, for the most part, 2 settings. One is super speed. They go Usain Bolt like they've eaten some steroid-infused Cheerios. Or the second setting, they start slow and nice and easy, and then they speed up massively and suddenly become rapidly fast, like they're going to beat a Mustang in a drag race. And that final setting there is supposed to be a sensor, so it's supposed to sense how much rain is on the windscreen and then wipe away at the correct velocity, I suppose. But they always seem to me to be a little bit overzealous. I think they just go a bit faster than they should be, and that means that even if you're in low rain, you know, you're going, and on top of that, they squeak. So in my opinion, of the humble kind, it's not the best design of windscreen wipers in the world, especially the squeaking. Thankfully, you can just hit it upwards, the little windscreen wiper stick, and it will manually make them go up once. So if you're really in a pickle and you're really done with that droning, squeaking noise across your screen at a way faster speed than you need, then you can just do it yourself. But again, that's not ideal, because you're gonna have to be going, which isn't how I like to spend my car journeys. But I mean, if you like to spend yours doing that, then it's the perfect design for you. But one of the worst things, if not the worst thing about this car, is the turning circle. Now, to demonstrate this to you, or at least to try to, I have set up some chairs, and I'm going to try and drive through them. Now, I'm thinking that perhaps a normal car could do it, but I'm not really sure this one will be able to. Let's find out. All right, chairs are set up, seatbelts on, I'm sweaty. Didn't need to know that. Let's go. I don't know if this is really what a car could do, but we're going for it anyway. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure that demonstrated much, but just take my word for it. It's got a pretty bad turning circle. It does have a bad turning circle, along with a plentitude of other issues, but I mean, does it matter? Like, you're not going to buy this car to be a statement piece, fun to drive, fast, good to look at. You're going to buy it second hand as a good family car, just to chuck stuff in and go on holidays via ferries. Like, it isn't going to be the most glamorous car to do it, and as we've discussed, there are certain issues that will definitely not make it the best up front. But I mean, for a couple grand, you're going to get a pretty big car with, I mean, probably decent mileage. And let's be honest, I was being a bit harsh on the looks. For an MPV, they're not that bad. And it does even have a banging moustache. So, could it be the best? Well, maybe it's time that I showed you some of the better features of the car. So onto the inside passenger seat. It's pretty comfortable. All of the seats are pretty comfortable, to be fair. I put the headrest back, adjustable, as with many things in life. And I said earlier, cup holders. There are 2 cup holders there, 3 here in the middle, 2 on that side, and I think there are even some in the back. So that is one thing it does have up on the Golf. Another good thing with this car, storage. There is lots, pardon me, of storage things in here. 3 different places out. They're not the biggest, but I mean, it's pretty decent having like all sorts of different ones, so that's all right. So yeah, no complaints here really. Onto the back. Okay, we are here in the middle, I suppose, seats of the car. Not too much to say really. I mean, they're pretty spacious again. You've got plenty of room down there if you need it. You got storage on the back here. It's all a bit messy, a bit mucky, but it is an old used car. It's done its purpose. One more cup holder down here. Pretty good.
Wait,
thumbs up.
Did you know that your Golf has cup holders in the back? Do you know?
Do you know what, I didn't. I hadn't tried pressing the panel there, which isn't a panel for cup holders. It's just a panel with a hole behind it. Okay, that set me off. Anyway, a good thing this also has, which the Golf also doesn't. Oh, that's actually, oh, that's not great actually. That's quite broken. That is a gaping hole. Okay, we shall ignore that. If we do ignore that, it does have a good cigarette lighter, which you can also, I can't pull it out. That's pathetic. Anyway, it does have that, which is quite useful to charge your phone or whatever. And there is one in the front as well, which I didn't mention. So that is good. But yeah, other than that, plenty of space. 3 seats, just what you need. Seat belts that, you know, stop the deaf things as long as you don't drive too fast. And all pretty good stuff. And one thing that it does have is plenty of space, which is very good. If you hang on just 1 second, I shall very properly demonstrate. Swoosh transition. Chair on a chair. That demonstrates space well. This is in case you... I don't think I'm very good at demonstrations. Okay, now onto the boot, which is debatably the most important bit of the car for a family luggage car. So the boot, a good amount of space. It has 2 extra seats which you can bring up, which are hugely dusty, unfortunately, but 2 extra seats. They have a decent amount of room in them, to be fair, but if you have like 2 extra kids, that is grand to use. It does reduce the boot space to only about 155 litres, which isn't then massive. So you're probably not going to want to do any long drives if you're going, you know, to bring stuff with these up. But down, it has pretty good space, about 440 litres, I believe. So that is, well, that's pretty good, isn't it? And then it also does, of course, have a little storage area with just what you'll need to change the tyres and stuff. As with most cars, that is quite stinky. And then a couple of small little compartments like in here, which has access to changing the lights, I think, but yeah. So it's pretty good, and it even has cup holders here and here, just in case your back passengers, you don't actually hate them, even though you put them in the back and they want some water. So that is good. But if this is not enough space for you, then fear not. As you can see, the seats here fold back very perfectly to make this lovely flat bed of space. It is very, very helpful actually, and it is pretty much completely flat, which, as I'm sure if you happen to be a 40-year-old dad or mother with children, is very useful because they have a lot of stuff, or more likely you want to go to the tip. Robbie Knox would love it. But yeah, basically go back very flat, which is very, very useful for basically every situation. Every situation. And to demonstrate this to you, I have arranged a series of demonstrations. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, go. Ow. 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 Oh, that hit me in the foot. That's quite a nice one, that. Let's come into the front. No, please be out. No. Don't hit me. I win. I think the t-shirt's got worse than before, but. Alright, that was only meant to happen in the first one. Ready? Yep. Okay. Stop. This does not work. Ow.
There's not actually any water in here because I don't want to get water in the car, so yeah. I regret my life decisions.
Thank you.
I'm so done.
So look, it's not a perfect car, but for what it's meant for, it does it pretty well. Like, it's done everything we've asked of it. It's very practical. It's never, well, broken down fully. I think there's been a few incidents, but it's still going at its age at plenty of miles, and it's practical, it's cheap, it's pretty reliable, and at the end of the day, it's not such a bad car. So perhaps it is the best car that money can buy, except as a Zafira.